So before we get into the detail, I think it's important that we define some of these planning terms. These terms are often used differently across organizations, so I think it's important to set the stage. In a traditional sense, there's really three types of planning. There's strategic planning, which has a long-term focus and deals significantly with predicting against changing market conditions. This type of planning is usually done very frequently and on an ad hoc basis, and usually needs to be a very quick running process. Then there's budgeting, which predicts finances at a department level for the upcoming fiscal year. Usually this is executed 1 to 2 times per year. The process often takes organizations weeks and sometimes months to complete. And lastly, there's forecasting, which really consists of revisiting the assumptions that you've made and reworking the budget. The forecast is usually done regularly and sometimes monthly, sometimes quarterly. I've even seen extreme situations where with this case, it's with a national auto seller that required daily forecasting to see what the car sales were doing on a daily basis. For each of the planning types, there are certain associated activities. So for strategic planning, the main activities include assessing internal and external factors. External factors really refer to market conditions, and then developing and communicating targets. For budgeting, activities include developing an annual financial outlook by department, and for forecasting, activities include the constant update of business projections via course corrections and action plans. For all these methods, the results of the activities result in more accurate predictions based on what's known and what the anticipated information is. So traditionally, these types of planning have always been viewed as separate and disparate processes, each being executed separately, often by different offices in an organization and with different tool sets. What we're seeing today is that these processes are becoming more integrated. Organizations are now better able to integrate these processes across the same personnel and the same tool set. And the evolving technology has been a big part of this trend. What we'd like to cover today is showing the various planning approaches and how business practices and technologies have allowed these items to become much more integrated. So our first step is to outline some of the planning approaches. These are some of the more common approaches, and I'm sure most of you are familiar with most of these. There's top-down and bottom-up. There's zero-based planning, driver-based planning. There's rolling planning, forecast planning, and activity-based planning. One thing to remember here when we discuss these approaches is that these are not mutually exclusive. It's not a matter necessarily of picking one that works for your organization. Many of these approaches are used together to provide an enterprise planning solution, and obviously this decision is based on the business that you're in and of course the corporate culture.